And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of the Black Bonnet Series Live panel discussion. We are back again with my beautiful, wonderful, talented co host panelists, Chanel, Tate, and Schwartz. They're just going to give a quick intro if you don't already know them, as well as, stuff that they have in the works that you guys should check out. Whoever wants to go first can jump right in.
All right, what's going on, everybody? You know me, Schwartz, child of God. Check out the Instagram, Schwartzen.Priscil. And yeah, that's all I got.
Oh, hey, how y'all know? How y'all doing? Tate here. Friend, sister, brother, whatever you want to call me to Moyo. I'm gonna say I didn't mean to say sister, brother. I was gonna say my sister Moyo and messed it all up. But whatever. Follow me on the gram. That's where I'm most active at. Content coming way, pre-work right now, working on a lot of different things. But Suai_generous_Tate. And yeah.
Hey, you guys. My name is Chanel. As you guys know, Moyo, my sis. Hey, my bro, Schwartz. That's definitely my bro. We're getting close there. So we're here to learn, educate, and have this conversation. Super excited about it. My Instagram is Queen Chanel _ P, if I'm not mistaken. It'll be down there somewhere. I'll be forgetting. But yeah.
All right, y'all. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into today's topic. So for those that didn't get to see the episode that we're discussing, it was titled "It Be on Homeboys," and it was basically talking about sexual assault within the Black community, focusing on Black women. And I do want to preface this by saying, huge trigger warning. If you're not comfortable, I completely understand, but this conversation still needs to happen. Technically, it was meant to happen last week Sunday, but your girl needed a little bit of a break, so we're having it this Sunday. So today I do want the viewers and those who will listen to please be respectful. I am a huge mama bear. I'll come crazy. So please just be respectful to everything that the panelists have to say, because we are all here to learn and do better. Okay, so first off, let's just get some, I guess, first thoughts on the episode. Like, what did you guys think? What were your first reactions? I guess, Chanel, you can start us off.
I enjoyed the video. One, I would like to thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story and just, speaking up and sharing about this topic, because this conversation doesn't get happened many times. And you getting up there and being vulnerable and sharing everything with the world, it's not easy. So round of applause to you.
Thank you.
So I like the video, and I like that you touched on a lot of different topics. If I would say anything about the video, I would say, for those who don't know, because I feel like in this generation, a lot of people would just hear sexual assault and then think like, okay, well, it's just like rape, like vaginal, penis, whatever, and like forcefully happening. And I think that we need to talk about all the aspect of what kind of it just means for sexual assault and sexual harassment and rape and all these other things that constitute to make people or victims feel uncomfortable. That's the only thing, and I kind of would like to jump into that and talk about that today too, as part of it, to have as Black Bonnet series, we bring the facts and educate and all that stuff. So
any guy can go next.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had a conversation. Well, I do want to start off with commending you as well, Moyo. That was very powerful. Definitely speaking your truth, and you were able to feel the energy just in the entire. Can you see me? Sorry.
Yeah.
In the entire episode. Okay, you guys are frozen on my side, but that's fine. I do want to tackle it from two angles, from a professional one first, probably, and then a personal one as well, just because I haven't had a conversation like this since college. In the real world, you don't really have conversations unless something happens, right? Mm-hmm. Something has to happen first in the workplace or to someone for those things to happen. But in college, I was very active as a residential advisor, someone who led, sexual assault preventions, things like that. So I do want to start off when we get into the conversation about my experience with that on the college campus and also in the real world as Schwartz and not as an RA or professional student.
Nice. Tate, what about you?
One, again, I was gonna say commending you again, just being vulnerable, being honest and truthful, and speaking your story. And I don't feel like that you had to do that. So I'm appreciative that you had to kind of spark this conversation. And go off also what Schwartz said is that this is a conversation. Both Chanel and Schwartz brought this up, and not a lot of people speak about this unless something happens. And also, I don't really feel like a conversation like this has been talked about with both men and women in the same room. Most of these conversations are taken off from a man to man or a woman to woman. So I think this is something that obviously when I initially heard it, I felt everything that you were saying. Your emotion was raw, and it kind of uneasy. As I said, you weren't talking about just front flowing like honest truth. It was uneasy to watch and listen for multiple reasons that we're probably going to address on like Schwartz said, a professional and a personal level. So again, just thank you for that. But yeah, definitely I could say uneasy and uncomfortable for the watching of it.
Yeah.
And receiving it.
I had a feeling it will be uneasy. It's never a topic that, it's not a icebreaker kind of topic, you know what I mean? But now the question is, have you guys ever had an experience with it, or like, what has your experience been with a conversation of sexual assault?
For me, I think like the first conversation of like, okay, what is it? Was going to college orientation, that T video, they all show you about whether I've experienced it like personally or like my friends have or things like that, but actual conversations about it, like what is consent and all these things for me did not happen till then. So I think, or until like other things happen, and again, something happens to someone or things like that, then that's when conversations start happening. But a lot of it just gets to like he said, she said, or what is this, or whatever the case is, but no one tries to actually understand or put in the work. It's just kind of when things blow over, that's when people want to be like, okay, it passed, so I don't have to educate, or that's not me, or that's not the person I know, or whatever. So it's like people don't actually take the time to have these conversations unless something happens, like Schwartz and Tate was saying.
Yeah. What about you guys? Have you guys ever had, conversation, or what has your experience been with sexual assaults, professionally, unprofessionally?
No, yeah. I've seen that T video as well. I didn't realize how universal it was. But yeah, we all went to PWI, so the conversation, depending on who's facilitating it and coordinated, depends on how the conversation goes, as well as who's involved with it. So that really changes your perspective on how it is that how we view it. But like I said, as an RA, for 2 years I've dealt with Title IX. I've sat down in conversations where sat down in rooms where I had to just be quiet and just listen. And years later now, now I'm a graduate, and these conversations still need to happen even before that stuff, before it takes place, because prevention is the best technique when it comes to that. I'm gonna hit on a couple more things. Of course, on a personal level, the woman who raised me was a sexual assault victim. Her daughter was, which is her daughter, and then she had a daughter as well, and I was who I was raised with, so she's my niece. We grew up in foster care together, and someone as a foster youth, of course, it's almost 75% of foster youth experience it. And so like those statistics I had to really understand as now as a grown man. As a child, you don't really understand how serious it is. But when you get older as a grown woman as well, you understand, you start to put two and two together and really try to make sense of what has happened when you were a child.
For me, most of the bulk of my conversation or information learned was through college, especially being a college athlete. That was something that we, even on my orientation as well, it was a T, but I had to see that video twice. It wasn't just as a student, but as an athlete, and constantly having to go through that. Also being a co-president of an organization on campus, it's a conversation you have to have multiple occasions, behind closed doors with people. And then I guess I was first introduced to it as a youngster, I guess, a family friend of mine who knew how serious I wanted to take athletics, and understanding that obviously college is being a opportunity for me to keep progressing as a career, was to have that conversation with me, know as well as that is something that a lot of people have to go throughout college. And it's a way to definitely not even just, it was from the concept they were trying to not mess up my career in any sense of doing something that was not needed or wasn't a part of the plan. So the conversation was brought to me at a very, very young age, in a sense of that, like, you know, there's a lot of things like drugs, women, sex, and so many distractions out there that can mess up kind of like where you want to go in life. So that was kind of the first thing. It wasn't the way that obviously, you know, the conversations as I progressed and got older were handled. But at the time, as a 12-year-old kid, that it was just kind of laid on to me and just let me know that, like, though, that's out there and you have to be careful and understand where you're at and the positions you're in and people that you associate yourself with. So college was the bulk of it, but I definitely was introduced to the idea of sexual assault and harassment at a young age.
Even though we're talking about sexual assault, I feel like I should quickly, I guess, give instances that fall under the umbrella of sexual assault. And that includes rape, that includes coercing someone to do something sexually that they do not feel they want to do. And that also includes unwanted sexual touch, as well as unwanted sexual penetration in any shape or form. So that is what constitutes as sexual assault. And the one thing I want to mainly ask is, of course, it's a hard discussion to have, but do you think, especially when it relates to Black women and Black boys as well, because that's one thing I feel I should have talked about also in the episode, is the sexual violence against Black men, because it does happen, and it's more unspoken than for women, because it's more of like, for men, it's viewed as a stealing of their manhood. Do you think that within the Black community, if these sort of discussions were had just as the same age as when you get the sex talk, do you think it would reduce the chances and the amount of times it happens to Black men and Black women within the community?
Good question.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's a good question.
I think so. And I say this because of my own experience. Like, for me, I thought, like, not that sexual assault is normal, but like when growing up, like, that's what I was taught, that it was like, if you see something or watching TV or Spanish soap operas or things like that, you know, it was always seen as like the woman's fault or things like that. She wore this, she wore that. That's why I didn't know about any of this stuff. So even like growing up, things that I would wear and all that stuff, I'd always be, if I was like wearing leggings and get catcalled, or like, you know, these men will touch you, they grab you and stuff like that. So any of those things that's ever happened to me, it was like, okay, because I wore this, or certain things like that. So that's how I grew up, of like thinking that these things were all my fault. But my family never had conversations about those things. My family, seeing my dad or anybody else like touch women, like, oh, mommy, come here, or whatever, and like touch their hand or things like that, like, that is normal in Hispanic culture or Black culture. It's normalized. So growing up, I thought that was normal. That's what, you know, women liked, when a guy like talks to girls like that or do things, because that's all I saw around me. So for me growing up, I didn't know that wasn't normal. I didn't know that it wasn't okay for guys to like do that, even if it made me feel uncomfortable. It was just like, okay, well, that's just what happens, and that person is attracted to you, right? So it's like, if I would have had, or like my grandma or someone else would have had that conversation with me, even my dad, of like, yeah, this is not okay and it's not normal, and these people that are around you and are talking to you, then maybe in those moments, some could have said something like, okay, well, this and this just happened, and I don't have to be like, okay, well, I guess this is normal, even if I'm uncomfortable, I just gotta kind of suck it up and be uncomfortable. Versus like, if these conversations would have happened, one, probably the men wouldn't feel so compelled to be like, or entitled to want to touch me, and two, if they did, I would not think that it was normal.
What about the guys? What do you guys think?
I would say, know that it, meaning it wouldn't reduce it. because the way, and what comes to mind is we've talked a lot about racism, and yeah, it's still as prevalent as it was back in the in the 90s. Oh, sorry, in the 60s. When these things come to light, even though it's supposed to like kind of reduce that stuff, I honestly don't think it does, because if we've all had conversations about sexual assault in college, and we went through the orientation, we have that discussion, and it's still happening, and we don't see like a change in that barometer, then having it in our homes, like we already have a code of conduct. We're people of color.
Mm-hmm.
We have a code of conduct where it's like you don't say nothing. Like we all grew up in that. You had to keep on a certain image.
Mm-hmm.
You can't cry. And if those conversations happen, I think even you have to, in order for that to happen, you have to address a lot of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It all has to come out. Like that's the most extreme case. But we're talking about like psychological abuse, where it's like, you can't say nothing, you're powerless, you're a child, know your place. You have to address all of that before even getting to the sexual assault. So I think sexual assault is at the top of the, as far as when it comes to the body, because we think it's just a body thing. It affects a woman's body or a man's body, but no, it affects the willpower, the person's emotional stability, and like you said in the video, sorry, in the podcast, like it has a psychological effect, and that stuff can be generational. And so I would say I don't think so. Like can I imagine myself having that conversation, even if if you had the sex talk, even though when you had the sex talk, you probably was already exposed to it.
Mm.
And so it's like those kind of how much would it help? I'm skeptical about that.
Yeah.
Schwartz, literally, I was going to agree with that. I don't think it would, in the sense of there's a lot of things that you have to unwrite to even get to that conversation. And I don't feel like there's a lot of people in the position that can even have that conversation in the proper manner. I feel like, obviously, you even stated it as well, that there's so many men out there who've probably even done it that have children. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to address a situation that is eternally a problem? Yeah. And a lot of it's also pressures of, like Schwartz said, it's generational teachings, and it might not even be, it could be subliminal things. This could be things that connected, cross connections and cross sections to things that you don't even understand. Just the simple things that Schwartz has brought up in regards of not being able to speak. And then you deep down the line, for certain people, that's a way of, physicality is a way for them speaking out. Just the way. And so there's so many different things that you have to really debunk and talk about and address. And I don't think that we're realistically in that position as a culture to be able to have those conversations at the ages we're at now. Imagine having it with somebody who is still growing and in the developmental stages that don't even grasp it yet. Like I said, like we all admitted, the conversations weren't even taking place until we were 18 years old. I feel like that's already too late to try to reverse some things that have already been installed from a psychological, mental, and emotional factor. So at the moment, like in regards, when you're still growing, people are not going to, I don't think that conversation is so deep that if we don't even understand it, I don't think a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old would fully understand it either. Because at that time, unfortunately, there are some kids at young that age are exposed to sex, but that's at even a time earlier before people are even sexually active or in that stage of our lives. So when it was brought to my attention, I wasn't, at the time I was focused on football or basketball. I wasn't even, you tell me, oh, that's a way that you can get in trouble. And I'm saying like, well, that's not even on my mind now anyway. Again, of course, that's not going to be a factor in my life. I don't care. I'm just trying to hoop. So I don't know. I just, and I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's funny because before I asked the question in my head, I was like, oh yeah, for sure. But hearing what, Tate and Schwartz have to say also made me see the other side. Is like, maybe it wouldn't help as much as I think it would, because in the episode I did state how at the age of 5 is when the assault for me started, and sadly enough, it is a proven fact that for Black women at the age of 5 we're deemed as sexually aware and as sexual beings, and a part of me is like, if someone in my family had told me that, like, you being touched in this way is inappropriate, at 5, I would have maybe known to speak to someone about it and be like, hey, so-and-so touched me and I didn't know what happened. And it wouldn't have taken me up until, I kid you not, I did not know that the experiences that were happening to me up until I got to college was sexual assault until I got to Ithaca. And my friends were like, that's not normal. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? So it's like a part of me feels like if a conversation had happened when I was younger, it might have helped. But then a part of me also doesn't know if it would have helped because I just found this out. But last year, because me and my mom had a deep conversation, and I just found out that she also experienced sexual assault. So it's like, okay, generation and generation and generation, and I will be damned if my daughter or my son goes through what I went through because I kid you not, I'll kill someone. I will. I'll go to jail. I'm in handcuffs. But it's like just knowing that generational trauma exists really, really fucked in my mind because I'm like, maybe my mom couldn't have the conversation with me because even talking about it, it took me, once I finally realized that what was happening to me was sexual assault, it took me about 3.5 years to tell my mom because I was afraid.
Right.
I was like, what if I get blamed? And that's something we're definitely going to talk about is the blaming on the victim. I was afraid I would get blamed because this person was within the family. So I was terrified, like, what if they blame me? But I'm like, I was 5. I didn't know what was happening. And it was just that cycle that, kept going on in my mind. But then eventually, after months of therapy, I finally, I guess, it just happened where we had the conversation. And even having the conversation with her, I could feel the tenseness on my heart in the room. We were in that room for like 3 hours with just not speaking. And then finally there were conversations happening. And it's like, maybe she couldn't have the conversation because maybe she wasn't ready either. Because my mom is not, she does not like therapy. She's like, it's bullshit. So it's just like what Tate and Schwartz says, that like, if you aren't mentally healed, you can't really be in the place to have the conversation because it's not an easy one to have, period. But if you're still within that trauma, you can't give advice on something you don't know about. Basically.
You haven't healed.
Yeah. So it's just...
You haven't healed. Yeah.
It's a hard duality to face because, like I said, like that's the whole point of the show is to just start that change and that conversation within communities, especially ours. But it requires, for a conversation like this to happen, it really requires people to heal.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ready for that.
Yeah, I agree.
And it sucks.
See the fact that you and I don't mean to sound older or anything, but being 20, 21, 22 for you, the fact that you're having that, like, and some people who are, say your mom, a lot older, a generation who has never probably told anybody, probably not even a husband, things like that. I think about that because, and I'm gonna talk to the viewer right quick. I'm sure their parent, like one thing that really stuck out when you said on Homeboys, where you said every Black woman you've met, that means more than likely almost 100% of Black women that you know have been sexually assaulted, which probably means if it could have been prevented, say, in best case scenario, which is where we want to be. Yeah. Like this conversation at the end, where we will want to try to push that narrative as far as Black women are not going to be sexually assaulted. We want to stand in the gap. And as men, as it be your home, like personally, since I don't know anybody personally, but then again, I then fit in the stereotype, but that doesn't mean like people don't know people who do. Like, you know what I'm saying? But if they haven't, if they're not in that mindset of healing, like it's a mindset, like Moyo, you have that mindset, like whoever's viewing this has the mindset to click on your channel and take that step. Our parents have not have that mindset. They're still in that generational curse where if they were, sexually assaulted, their grandparents probably were, and so on and so forth. And, not to throw racism under the bus and things like that, but to be honest, like, in slavery, Black women were being assaulted at a young age, and so were Black men. And Black men sometimes had to watch their Black women, Black women go through that. And if we couldn't do that, sometimes we feel powerless. You know what I'm saying? That shit shakes the heart. And that's what we got to go to. If we want to get to the root of that psychological trauma as far as why we can't even speak, like, because, I'll be honest, I didn't never spoke about mine till about 3 years ago. And I still couldn't speak about it. I had to write about it. It was so that horrific and things like that. I couldn't speak. It's still, I still hard to verbalize it to make myself hear it. And so if we got to address that and we got to move the culture forward and move our own people forward, unfortunately, the white man, I have to say it, started that trend in that shit. And it started that whole conundrum that it's okay for us not to protect our bodies, protect ourselves when we see violence being done to our bodies.
Yeah. So now what do we do with that? Like, it's no shocker, especially around the world. Oh Lord, it's sometimes hard not to hate white folks. Not gonna hold you. Yes, I said it is the truth. But it's hard because it's just so much shit that happens to us that we now have to make the effort to fix 400 plus 800 years of just pure bullshit. Because let's be honest, a black girl at the age of 5 would not be deemed as hypersexual if not for the Europeans that came to Africa and viewed our dances as sexual. But now, here we are, we're stuck with this fact. We're stuck with the fact that our community is broken. We're stuck with the fact that black women and black men both get sexually assaulted by other black people in the community. What do we go from here? And that's the hardest century age question that it's like, I don't even think I can answer that at this point because I don't want to.
But I don't think there is an answer.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should be the one to. But I do think that in the sense of, and this might be try to be the micro positive thing that I'm trying to take from this is that just Schwartz said it. You are speaking about it when your mother didn't have the opportunity to. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying as us getting older, and to be honest, as much as our generation gets shit for just the amount of things that are wrong with our generation, the one thing that I am, especially with the last 5 years that we've been seeing, is that we speak. And I feel like that's encouraging to know that there's issues that we are having a conversation in 2021 in March about this right now. Mm-hmm. That these conversations weren't being taken place even 5 years ago. So I feel like the only things we can do is continue to speak, because when we get into our up to our parents' age and do have our own, that's a conversation that we are better to be able to be suited to have. So I'm saying that it's encouraging to know that the next couple of generations do have leaders that are more spoken, and we're in different times where we are allowed to speak. And I'm not saying that it's an easy conversation. I'm not going to say that it's going to solve everything and make sure there's going to be less victims. No, I do think these things are going to be perpetuated because of some of the systematic things that are already in place. But the conversations is there. Yeah. And I'm telling you, there's more men of color that are talking about it and know about it than there were 50 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a number that we should be celebrating about, or there's more men trying to change, but the conversation is going. Yeah. And I can only, and 100% can back up the fact the conversation is not going to stop now, because I don't think you're going to wake up tomorrow and forget about everything that's happened. No. Mm-hmm. So I think that there is no answer. There is no, because it's not something we're supposed to be prepared for. So I just said that in the grand scheme that we're having a conversation, even if this reaches 5 people, that's 5 more people that had to listen, and I guess it's just about numbers of small games and taking accountability that, like me and Schwartz, when we go talk to our homeboys, that's something we got to talk. For me, it starts with just talking, the conversation. There's no right or you can't undo. And then one thing about it too, that people who have done acts or have been victims have the ability to still learn. Yeah. So there's still not like, oh, if you're a victim, that's your story is taken away. Even though it may feel like that, but it's still not. You have the ability to learn. You've learned probably more about yourself in the last 3 years than you've ever had. Yes, sir. Ooh, and I know some people who, I don't personally know, but I know there's probably people out there who have done stuff and realized what they've done that was wrong, and are still learning from it. Yeah. So I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of it, I feel like we're in the right direction. Now it might be slow as hell. We need to put more gas in this whip. Yeah. But I'm just saying, it's at least it's still moving. You feel me? Yeah. So, and as long as we can continue, even if it's us 4, just bring on another person or have that. As long as the conversation ain't gonna be, we're way better than it was 100, 200 plus years ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. That's all I can say on that. I don't think we need to even have an answer. As long as we handle our own and do what we personally can do, then that's the best we can possibly do.
Thank you. That was needed. Now there's one thing because Schwartz knows a little bit about my past and history with this stuff, but there is one conversation that I feel within the community that needs to happen a lot more, and it's the not alling. Not all black men, not all. And I saw a post on social media that it was harsh as hell, but it was basically saying that, oh, like black men are the white people of the black community in the sense of they always that passing the blame and the not alling. And I want to address that really quickly because when I have experienced, women coming forward, black women coming forward and, speaking their piece and saying their experiences, there's always that one, male or sometimes even a female that says, well, not all. And it's, for me, it diminishes the woman's experience and also diminishes the point of what's being said. Because I just feel like if you are not alling, just like when I had the episode about white women and when they not all, yes, we know not all black men do this. Yes, we know not all black women are like, just like, when they say, black men ain't shit. We know not all of y'all ain't shit. We get it. Mm-hmm. But there is a point in the fact that, like, even though not all of you guys are, sadly, the majority of, men, and I'll speak for myself, the majority of black men that I have encountered have been the ones that caused me this pain. And I will say this, and this is just to, speak on the character of Schwartz and our friend Anthony. They are the first black male relationship that is truly healthy that I've ever experienced.
Okay.
Sorry. No, take your time. You gotta apologize.
I feel like I'm in church. Take your time, sister. But they are the first, when it comes to like black males in my life, in friendships, especially friendship, they're the first that's like, it's just truly been healthy. There is no sexualization. There is no diminishing of my experiences. They just listen. Like a lot of the times me and Schwartz will have conversation and he's like, yo, I didn't even know that. You just educated me. And they listen. Even though Anthony sometimes be an egghead, but they listen. And it's like, I personally need more of that within other black men. And Tate does it too. Tate will listen whenever I'm like going off on him, because I go off on him a lot. Whenever I'm like going off on him.
I'm happy you brought that to the light. Thank you. I'm not going to take your story away. Thank you for bringing that to the light.
I should never said that, because now he's going to run with it.
Behind closed doors, I'm fine now. Okay, I'm fine.
But no, in all sincerity, these are men that I'm thankful that I've, found God has blessed me to surround myself around, because before I hit the age of, I think me and Schwartz met when I was 20, I think? Yeah. Before I was 20, my experiences with black men have not been healthy. They've not been, pleasant. There's always been the attacks. There's always been the, stereotypes. There's always been that sexualization. Like, there's only been one romantic relationship that I've had that the guy didn't try to sexually assault me. And that's toxic. Like, only one. That's not a good statistic to have. So, like, for black men that are watching this, or if they hear about this, stop the not alling, because when you not all, you are just diminishing the point of what this woman is trying to say. Because yes, we know not all black men sexually assault. That's a given. Not every person is going to wake up like, oh, I should just take her body today. Duh. But when we're speaking, it would be nice when you check your homeboy. Or not even check your homeboy, but, stand up to your homeboy that's telling you to do something. Because I had an ex, and Chanel knows about this, but I had an ex where it was fine and dandy until his friends got involved. And that's when I never looked at him the same. And I'm like, did you just try what I think you just tried? So it's like, sometimes not even, the guy may be fine, but then the friends get involved and the friends give advice that it's kind of rapey. So yeah. So when it comes to the not alling, I'm begging you, stop it, because you are helping no one. Because would you want your daughter to date a man like you? What do y'all think?
I have mixed feelings on this. And I'm just going to be honest. Hope I don't offend anybody. And 100%, agree with you from the not all perspective of diminishing someone's thoughts, stories, feelings towards that 100%. But I feel like there's a way, the message you're trying to relay, it's not always what you say. I mean, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And somebody who's constantly on social media, and that all thing gets blown on both sides. I don't want to just, this conversation is around sexual assault and sexual harassment, why this is specific to that. But the all in gets thrown on both sides to that. It's very, 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 very hard for any individual to see something that is categorizing them with something they don't relate to and to expect to have a positive reception to it. So 100% agree with you in the sense of, we know you're not all, but when you just all throw, as people who are recipients, we think that's all you see. So I'm from both sides. I'm talking about from the person who can't identify and the person that may be able to identify. If you identify with that, you're just stirring up the pot more. In all honesty, all niggas ain't shit. Okay, cool, bitches ain't shit. Oh, I don't care. Or I'm just gonna keep doing me. For somebody who doesn't relate and who doesn't identify with whatever that all-in is, well, that shuts that person down to feel like, oh, I ain't really worth it. I ain't doing enough. So I ain't saying there's an easy way to even say it. Again, it's most of the people who are saying it are expressing it, and obviously they don't mean it with that intent. But I don't feel like a lot of people understand that when you see all niggas ain't shit, well, the niggas that are trying to be shit really don't feel that good anymore. It doesn't matter. Even if I act good, she don't care because she only gonna see me as the same dudes as doing the things that's messing up. So I just want to realize that, like, I feel like from both sides, whenever we're talking about anything, the words that we use do actually mean something. No matter if it's different or trying to relay a certain message, the words may not everybody's going to see it the same. Not everybody's going to receive the message you're trying to approach the same. So out of your specific, which you were addressing 100%, don't ever invalidate somebody's feelings for anything. But when I'm saying, if you're trying to just throw that out there as a term for anything, when we're talking about all in, that joint got to go on both sides. I just wish we wouldn't say that. I don't even care if it's corny to say majority. Say majority. It's like, but I'm telling you, because the people who receive it see all and don't realize that you are smart enough to recognize that it's not all. Because then that's also showing when the person who's saying all, or the person who's receiving it looks at you in a different way. Because now we think you're mentally closed off, or you only see it in one way, when in 100% you're just kind of releasing frustration or whatever emotion that's attached to whatever you're being said. So that's all of my mixed feelings on it. I 100% agree with you. I support you in regards to we need to eliminate that, but from also many additional reasons as well.
No.
True. I agree in both sense. I think there needs to be a limitation in kind of the not all people do this, because obviously we don't see this, but also like using the words like Tate is saying, like all niggas ain't shit or all these things, because like he's saying, it does kind of diminish the person and the work that they're doing, you know. So then I'm guilty of this myself. Same. Of like, not necessarily of like like even when we're joking like all niggas ain't shit, so I'll do that with you, Moyo, but like I say all of us. I always say like everybody ain't shit to a certain extent. That's what if you're my friend.
Nah, that
she said that on multiple occasions.
Every day.
Definitely, I've heard that.
And that's mostly because we all have stuff that we need to grow and to heal from. And I feel like all these things do when people say niggas ain't shit, bitches ain't shit, whatever it is, a lot of the times it comes from stuff from their past, and going back to that healing conversation of that we don't get the chance to heal from the things, even if it's something that people think is as simple as a broken heart or whatever. Those things are real. Breakups, all these things are 100% real, because you're building a life with someone, whether you live with them, whether not, you're building something with someone else, whether that's a friendship. You can break up with a friend. Losing a friend hurts just as bad as losing a significant other and things like that. So people don't necessarily take those things just kind of take these things for granted, and it diminishes, like you guys are saying, the person's experience when you say either not all people do this or not all white people do this. I attribute it to the same thing. It's the same excuse that white people use. Not all white people, not all cops, not all. Well, obviously, but if you don't do it, then we're not talking about you. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about these people who do it. That it's a problem, because it's a problem on a greater scheme. And if you do it, then we are targeting you, and you need to hear this conversation. And even the other people need to hear this conversation so that they can go and have conversations and check the other people. But yeah.
Right. No, I was saying, in Tate's defense, for those who are watching, who there are dudes who do, do their best. Me and Tate have like outside conversations where we do talk about the appropriate way to approach a woman, a woman, and things like that. How do we teach the younger or our peers, things like that. So those conversations are happening. Off camera and things like that. So I guess in a response to like, it be on Homeboys. What are we gonna do as a homeboy? What are we about to do about it? And we're gonna check our men as men who want to have families, who want to be healthy, who are healing, who are having conversations, or who are acknowledging the fact that we kind of messed up in a lot of ways as well. And, growing up and being toxic, being that toxic man at one point. We're acknowledging that, but then what do? We are holding ourselves accountable. We're not trying to out here be Captain Marvel or something, but we doing our part, like take the small little instances, like my book Be Your Own Hero, like a little thing like that where it's like I had conversations about sexual assault because of that.
Mm-hmm.
There was one chapter where I strictly talked about my sexual assault on the adult. You know what I'm saying? Because as adults, let me say that. We look at our peers as peers now, but when we were younger, like to be put in a position where we could potentially be sexually assaulted, that shit lies on our parents. You know what I'm saying? So that it be your uncle, it be your auntie, it be your cousin that exposes you to those things.
Yeah.
So you got to protect your house.
Yeah.
Like you got to protect your house. Like if they're gonna, if mine happened for 2.5 years because I was in foster care and things like that, nobody give a shit about a foster child and things like that. I'm trying to change that narrative, but that's perpetuating the stigma with that. And so that's why I came out with it, because I mentor foster kids. I'm in a position where I talk to kids, because I'm a director of the Boys and Girls Club, where I let them know like it's okay to be free, to create, to have fun, to sing, to live your childhood, even though you're going through trauma right now, even though they're going through that stuff, to have a positive role model and adult and things like that. Those are small things that are very important to a child's development, and so that they can be healthy adults, even if they make some mistakes when they're older. Sometimes we paint this narrative of ourselves like, well, I wasn't given a good childhood, so all is done now. No. The power is changing the narrative. I think Tate talked about that. The power is in changing your story. Yeah. Like, we're not victims. We are victors.
Come on,
we
somebody.
are more than conquerors. This is why God it's over us. Like, we are children of the one true King. We come from a royal bloodline, So, instead of, saying woe is me and things like that, we take that approach and say, yo, we that happened. We acknowledge it. We still feel the hurt of it. But instead of, letting that cycle continue, we break it, because our children are not going through this. We refuse it. We will literally die. Like, somebody put their hands on our children. This is what's happening, because we're a village, because we're having this conversation, because we understand the severity of it. Yep. And we us having this conversation I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm like, shit, yeah, I'm gonna have some nice little kings and queens coming up, because I got people that's looking out after them now. So instead of people who weren't.
We're like halfway through today's conversation, and I really want to say this. I was shit-faced nervous as to how this will go, because of, I guess, my experiences in such a heavy topic. And I just want to say I love y'all so much. Like, thank you guys for just making this such a great conversation, and just making it, even though we're virtual, I just feel the love and the warmth. And yeah, like, I just had to say that, because it was just on my heart. Like, yeah.
Connect my heart. She's not connected.
He did.
I'm dead. But yeah, the last thing I feel like we should talk about is, unless you have a question, because you mentioned earlier that you want to talk about something. If you remember it, just jump right in at any point.
No, you already had mentioned it.
Oh, lit. Okay. Great. The last thing I want to talk about is just, I guess, for now that we are older, I guess for those, who are younger, because looking at my analytics on YouTube, I'm realizing that I'm getting more of a younger base. And I want to talk about just noticing and watching out for the signs of knowing when, I guess, sexual assault has happened, and feeling comfortable to talk to someone about it. Anyone around that you feel you can talk to, because sometimes it's not always your family. I'm not going to hold you. That was me. And I want to say that because before this topic, I just started thinking about, I guess, the instances of when things like this had happened. And I realized that, like, growing up, especially growing up, like, I guess, in the hood, it was kind of normalized. especially throughout middle school and high school, it was normalized. Like, I don't know if people remember, like, the national, like, on Instagram when they would have, like, the National Smack Butt Day. I don't know if anyone remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yes.
I didn't even know that. That's wild. I
Wow.
wasn't on the
Yes.
gram there. That's wild.
Wasn't on the
That's
gram.
wild.
Like,
I must
don't
not.
know.
I don't know how I missed that.
I remember that. I do remember.
I remember those days. They would have like the calendar and the dates of like the national dumb crap that you were meant to. Yeah.
I ain't never heard this smack. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Taught me something.
Mm-hmm. And even like in middle school, when like a guy would hug you and their hands would move slowly lower and lower down the equator, and it's like, wait, come on, Johnson, bring it back up. And it was normalized to get a hug from a guy and his hand just go right down south, down to the South Pole. It's like, no, come north. And it's like in those instances, me as a 10-year-old or even a 13-year-old in middle school, when that would happen and a guy would hug me and do that, did I feel comfortable with it? Hell no. But did I accept it? Because, Brianna, who's a popular chick, it happened to her. So I don't want to be uncool. I don't want to freak out and spaz out on the dude. And so I just feel like we should have that kind of conversation about, how normalized it's been and just kind of spotting the signs. Yeah.
I think, I want to say first, but I don't like this conversation. Not, I want to listen more to this, but I want to say what I was sick of. Me and Chanel had this conversation earlier, and I felt like as someone listening to the video, I felt like the biggest or hardest thing for me to accept is that there's so many women I probably don't know that have experienced stuff that have not said anything. So when you said like noticing the signs, I would love to hear about this because I know very few women who have the ability or have had the opportunity to express what's happened to them to me. And I don't know if that's just not me feeling like I'm that close to them, or that's just something that I'm just not ready to talk about. But like that was something I was like, I didn't realize that like so many women went through it. And now I'm like, yo, like how do I even know if they have or not, and how can I be a supporting role? Because obviously no matter what happened, no matter what the role is now, it still happened, and the best way to assist or be able to realize or recognize that something's happened, it is something that I was like, after the video, I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So that's why I want to front say I'm gonna be listening a lot. I don't really have much to throw into this conversation, but I just want to say like thank you for bringing it up, because that's something that I definitely expressed to Chanel.
Yeah, no problem. Chanel, I guess, sister, come on.
Yes. All right. So I think I told this to say earlier too. Like, there's no way to kind of know that the person themselves have been assaulted, especially I'm gonna say Black women specifically, because we're so good at hiding things.
Yeah.
Right. So if you might not know, like literally, at least being a child, whether it was I went to parties very early. So whether it was going to parties or doing things, like I would come home and be right back normal, be with my friends or certain things like that. So it's like nothing happened, because again, this was normalized, normal things that happened. And you don't recognize that this is something that happens sometimes until way later, or that this is not normal, like I said. So I think in terms of like, for guys to like notice, okay, if it's just simple things of how you touch and being mindful of how you touch other people. I know it's COVID and stuff, but people still hug and hopefully things go back to normal or whatever, but how you hug, how you approach people, or that, I'm gonna say it, but that where's my hug and forcing women to hug you if they don't want to hug you. They don't have to hug you. And I think that's the biggest one that's just so normalized of like, where's my hug? Where's this? Whatever. If they wanted to hug you, they would have hugged you. Right? Like Tate, when we was on campus, I would hug you 1,000 times every time I saw you.
I like hugs, but I wasn't that way you hug ass person. I wasn't. I just said I do enjoy hugs. But.
Yeah. So literally, and I would see him all day on campus every single day. But because he's someone that I love, I'm gonna hug you if I want to hug you. If I didn't hug you, I intentionally did not hug you. And most of us are gonna be like that. If we don't want to hug you, but we're going to hug you because we don't want to embarrass you. Especially us Black, we're not going to sit there and embarrass you, or we're used to being outside in the street. When we're outside in the street, what is it? If you don't hug or say hi or smile back or whatever, you're a fucking bitch, all this other stuff. And that's usually the response when the where's my hug or where's the smile or whatever, we get back. So even if we're uncomfortable with something, if you can tell that your homeboys is uncomfortable and they need saving to go talk to a girl or whatever the case is, and you can see the body language or whatever, then you should be able to kind of tell when someone's uncomfortable, if someone's like touching them or whatever the case is. And like, you can easily just, hey, or grab their attention, even if you don't know the person, to be honest. And like, hey, if you see them at a bar and you're outside and you're like, you see somebody like harassing them, hey, whatever, like, what's going, like, are you okay, whatever, asking them whatever, or pretending that like you're their friend, and you like, obviously that person's harassing them, pretending you're their friend, hey, I was waiting for you, whatever, I'm sorry I'm late. Some little things like that would be 10 times more helpful, because you become that person's like safety in that moment, because we never know what's going to happen. I know it's crazy, and it's a lot more things, a lot of little things you can do, because it's so much stuff. Like, it's a lot of things, and some things are super subtle that you would even be like, is that, if you have to question it, more than likely it is. You know, so if you think it looks funny, more than likely
it's funny.
It's a little funny. Like, so I think that's the biggest thing that I would like give advice to, like, especially boys, to, if it looks funny, it probably is. And for girls, if you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to be uncomfortable. You find your support system, find us girls, follow us on Instagram if you want to talk about it. You know, where Moyo and I are always okay having these conversations and talking about it. You know, these boys, they're amazing, and they'll listen. I'm not gonna volunteer you guys, but you know, like, I know that they're really amazing and really great guys. So find your support systems, and I would say, if you want to report it, if you want to, whatever justice, if you have been through it looks like for you, find that justice. Justice doesn't always mean going to a court and doing this, because sometimes it can traumatize you more than it even did. And you know, a lot of people are talking about like reporting and doing all these things, but sometimes that might traumatize. If you're not ready to do these things, then that's okay. Don't like, other women tend to pressure other women to do these things, or this is what justice should be, or whatever the case is, but that might not be what that person needs. So women, support your fellow women. Guys, support women, support your fellow guys, support each other in the community. Please just support each other. And that's the biggest advice I can give.
For me, I guess, for me, I'll say that because of my experiences when it comes to, and that's what then I guess dawned on me in therapy, was that I'm more open to divulging information about my life to women than men. And ironically, my first therapist, he was a male. Bless Mike. He was a male, but it literally took me to our last session to finally say who the first person that sexually assaulted me was. However, with my new therapist that I had last semester, I was spitting out like water. You couldn't stop me. And I realized that it's because of the, experience that I've had with men that I always have this guard up. So for that, I will say that, like, even before me opening to Schwartzen Anthony, it took me a minute. But I will say that, like, for men that want to be that safe haven for women, just continue to be yourself and continue to always listen and be observant. That for me was what made me trust Schwartzen Anthony. Just them observing my language and my body language, and like they would know when I was about to pull away, and they're like, come back here. Where are you going? Now you're going to talk to us about it. Yeah. And they would always be that safe haven for me. So if as a man you want to be there for a Black woman, I kid you not, listening is the biggest advice I could ever give. And when it comes to spotting the signs and seeing a woman that has been, sexually assaulted and knowing how to, maneuver that and what you should and shouldn't do, I guess the biggest takeaway is observing how she reacts when you touch her. Like if there's a hug, if she's really like, I don't do, for me, and funny enough, it was a trigger for me when I was younger. One of my male church family friends, you know how the Black communities with that whole, like, they go to my church or they family, that kind of stuff. We were play fighting as a joke, and he literally just placed his hand on my neck, and I broke down crying, freaking out. And he thought he scratched me. I had no bruises. This movement freaked me out. Did I know why I was freaking out at that point in time? No. Now that I'm 21, do I understand why? Yes. But little things like that, like seeing how the woman or even the male reacts to conversations, and body language will really let you know and just let you understand, like, okay, this person's been through something. They may not feel comfortable to talk about it, but that's fine. But like, that's what they've been through. And I kid you not, once everyone in the world just starts to have those, abilities to just observe and listen, conversations like this will not be so hard to happen anymore. In fact, I'm hoping that one day it will get to the point where we don't need to have these kind of conversations because we know better. We're doing better. We are already normalizing it. Like in schools, they have education about this stuff. Not college. We're talking middle school. We're talking high school. Like every step of the way in education, these conversations are happening. So that's honestly the way, honestly. But yeah.
It's crazy. Like listening to y'all, both of y'all, right? And I don't know how this is even gonna come out, or I guess it just came in my head now. But I realized that I have a lot of friends that are my boys, and I hope that anybody, if my boys ever see this, they don't take this offensively. But I realized how messed up men were. Not all men. Again, I'm using the majority of men, and how uncomfortable it can be for women to come to men. When I realized that most of my darkest things that I keep to myself, I talk to women about. I just realized that
Same here.
Like I don't talk to men about a lot of different things. And I always tell that with even women, and I'm like talking to or something like that I'm trying to get into a relationship, that I let them notify them, like, I feel more comfortable talking to women. I have more friends, that my closest friends are women, and due to this. And I just realized, like, again, I knew that always subconsciously, but not hearing to y'all, like, wow, like we have to have a conversation, like for men to men, like, yo, like if I can't talk to my boy about something, how do I even expect a woman to be able to talk about anything to me? You feel me? So like just listening to that right now, I knew it was something that, like, that's more conversations that more men need to have to kind of create like a safe space for everybody, not even just for women and men, but more of a, like you said, a listening, observing, and again, that all comes with a lot of destructing of a lot of other problems. But yeah, that's a conversation for a whole nother time. But yeah, like I appreciate y'all for even saying that and just bringing that up to light. So.
I just want to say I love these conversations every single time because of this same thing, like of what you say of like, okay, well, I just make these realizations, and I learn too. Obviously, we all do these conversations about even each other. Like obviously, I already knew this about you as well too. You have mostly female friends, and things like that. But we've known each 5 years, and you still can manage to still learn of something new, even though we had this conversation earlier today, even though we've had multiple of these conversations and conversations about a lot of other things. I think it's just good to see that, we have these spaces to talk, and even though we've known each other for all these times and we're really close, like we're still learning things about each other because we have these conversations. So it just shows, just in a really, really small place, that it's working. And hopefully that we, like you guys were saying, time that we can heal ourselves, heal the things, and accept the things that we did in the past that contribute to rape culture. And then not saying that you guys do, but things like that.
No,
and our friends, check our friends. And
but I feel like little things that may do a conversation that wasn't had could contribute to something. So exactly. I'll take ownership as an individual, that because you can always do better. So like that's why my one thing, content is in anything is a problem in my opinion. If you content is always something if you're not getting better. So again, like you said, like I feel like these conversations need to have, and it gives me hope that like if even somebody who I look at myself, I'm trying to do the best. I obviously we all have our flaws and stuff, but if I can still learn something, then there's a hell lot of people who ain't doing things right that can learn a lot. So you're in the sense of it. So like thank you, love y'all. I'm done.
Right. No, I'm gonna definitely use these conversations as content, because I do teaching with with basketball with 14 to 18-year-old teenagers, you know what I'm saying, from the west side of Buffalo. And I just talk to them. It's hard to lecture a teenage boy at that, especially when they want to talk about girls. You know what I'm saying? But using this as an example as a teaching method, you know what I'm saying? The fact that we have an open dialogue and things like that. And just for them to be exposed to those conversations, I mean, I think it plants seeds. And they might not get it right away, because I sure didn't get it right away when I was a teenager. Sure, Tate didn't either. But later on, it kind of, you start to put 2 and 2 together, like, oh, okay, that's hopefully it's, for the later conversation when they do become men.
Yeah, but even like you were saying, Schwartz, like you didn't get it when you were younger, but how in depth were these conversations when you were younger? So it's like if you didn't have you have more knowledge now than you did before. So now the knowledge that you pass on, they can get more. from the conversation versus what we got before. It's just like, okay, well, make sure you protect yourself, make sure you do this or whatever. Versus like now you have more experience, you have friends that have been through it, you have this knowledge that you can pass down more information than what you got when you were younger.
That's true.
Same with Tate.
That's true.
All right, guys. We are at the end of the live conversation. Again, I cannot thank you guys and God enough for placing you in my life. I'll always say it. You guys were hidden blessings that I'd always prayed for, and God said, boom, here you go, you're blessed. So yeah. So, okay, guys, remember to click down on the link below in the bio to get your BB merch, get your hoodies, and use the code Women's Month to get free shipping. Again, yeah.
Let me shout out Ant too. This is Ant's clothing brand, Onyx. You know what I'm saying? Believe brand. This is Ant. That's what she was talking about, Ant.
Yeah.
This is Big Ant. Yep. Onyx. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Support black business.
Period.
Support black business.
Support it.
You better watch it. Let's get it.
Yeah. Does anyone want to say any last minute thoughts before we round up or end the live? Technically, no. Yeah. Okay. Great. Amazing. I'll catch you guys again next week. Guys, don't leave because I didn't take a picture for the thumbnail like I always forget to do. Okay, so bye guys.